So right at the tail end of my day, I kind of lost my voice. Don't know what happened, but that's what's going on. So if I sound different, that's why. What's up? Welcome back. This is the Changelog. Jared and I joined by Dustin Bluck to discuss his acquisition of the well-known and beloved Castro podcast app to take it indie-focused once again. As previous users of Castro, Jared and I were excited to dig into the details behind this popular podcast client to see what's next, how the deal was done, a peek into the code, and see exactly where this indie podcast app can go. A massive thank you to our friends at Fly for getting our back, being the home of changelog.com. Launch your app, your database, and your AI near your users. Learn more at fly.io. What's up, friends? This episode is brought to you by our friends at Sentry. Check them out at sentry.io, sentry.io. Code breaks, fix it faster with Sentry. Don't just observe, take action. The only app monitoring platform out there built for developers that gets to the root cause for every issue. 90,000 plus growing teams use Sentry to find their problems fast. GitHub, Disney, VMware, Airtable, Autodesk, Monday.com, Miro, Tonal. I could just go on, literally. 90,000 plus teams trust Sentry to fix their problems fast. But how they do that? Well, they have error monitoring, session replay, performance monitoring, code coverage, all the things it takes to make an application run well in production. Sentry has got you covered. Again, check them out at sentry.io. That's sentry.io. And make sure you use our coupon code CHANGELOG to get $100 towards your error monitoring with Sentry. Once again, sentry.io, sentry.io.
Well, we are here with Dustin Bluck, the new owner of the Castro podcast player. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Excited to have you. Castro fans, not just saying that, right? Adam, you're a user or was a user for a while.
Prior user.
I have it on my phone.
You know, what made me initially try it was the fact that Tiny had bought it, you know, and I'm a fan.
So you're not the second owner, Dustin. You're the third owner? How does this work? Tell us a little bit of the history.
Well, I can tell you what I know. I don't know as much. I'm sure there's some users of the app know a lot more than I do, to be honest.
Okay.
No, there were two founders. They sold the app to Tiny, or
Andrew Wilkinson. Yeah.
Tiny has a very confusing corporate structure, which I could never really wrap my head around. But they worked there for a while. I think one of them went to Apple, and yeah, they ended up selling it. Officially, I did not buy it from Tiny. I bought it from Andrew Wilkinson personally. They want me to say that I did not buy it from Tiny, so
you're saying that.
Okay.
I will say that.
Okay, well, you two obviously know what Tiny is and who Andrew Wilkinson is. That name rings a bell, and I think I've heard Adam talk about Tiny before, but I'm not familiar. So, will one of you tell us more?
I will try my best to describe Tiny in regards to what I know about Tiny. I'm going to say Tiny at least 3 more times. I believe it is tiny.com. And so Andrew Wilkinson, Andrew was one of the co-founders. I believe he and his brother created the company MetaLab, which was pretty prominent. I would say, I'm not sure they're not prominent now, but I know that they were the early days of Slack. So Slack, I think, hired them because they were phenomenal graphic designers, phenomenal interface designers, brand designers, etc. And so Andrew goes back to the day of MetaLab. They were the original folks who made the initial design for Slack. And Slack was groundbreaking when it first kind of came about. And somehow Andrew got really interested in Warren Buffett and some of the investors out there And I think he took a couple playbooks from Warren Buffett and began to invest because he became successful. He had free cash flow. So when you have free cash flow, you make it flow into things that create assets, then obviously gain cash, etc., to become an investor. So I think Tiny was this thing that got born out of his way to buy tiny companies that have certain profitability ratios. And he kind of looked at these different investments like Warren Buffett might, but he kind of stuck into the tech sphere. And I think he's originally from Victoria, BC. Tiny was his investment company / acquisition company. I think he had some partners. I'm not sure of the full details, but they have acquired several businesses, Dribble being one of them. They're the owners of Dribble. Okay. And also the owners of Designer News.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those things are definitely ringing bells.
Yeah.
So they bought Castro from the original founders.
Right.
Castro, an iOS podcast app. Is it iOS only, Dustin, or is there an Android?
It's iOS only. I mean, I have a separate Android app, though.
You have an Android app as well, which kind of ties these stories together of why you're interested in that. Right. We'll get to your story as well. But on Castro's side, do you know why Tiny sold it? Or Andrew Wilkinson, sorry. Andrew Wilkinson personally sold it to you. Was it not working? Were they bored? I mean, I know that it went into some sort of state of quasi disrepair. I mean, the users were kind of mad. They were leaving. Tell us that side, like what you walked into.
One more layer, though, for you, Jared, before he answers this, is there also the investors behind Supercast, which you know of.
I do.
So they kind of got into this podcast movement.
Okay. I remember talking about that with the Supercast folks. Okay, cool. All right, Dustin, go ahead.
I mean, I can only speculate exactly what the deal was. I mean, I know they redesigned the app in, I think it was January of 2023.
Okay.
So they were definitely working. I think that Castro's never really been able to decide what it is. Is it like more indie, or is it like an actual company with like real employees, and like, is it like a larger thing or like very small, right? And I think it's like, I don't think like they did it. They had a larger operation. They had expanded. They had employees. They had like a whole thing. It's actually like pretty niche. It's like a very specific thing. The app is like, it's boutique. It's like people who are really into podcasts and like really see it as like a productivity thing. Like there's all these things I want to listen to. I got to get through them.
Right.
It's like, it really appeals to a certain type of people. And like, I've read all their emails. Like this app works the way my brain works in terms of like just powering through this stuff. But it's not like, it doesn't really have a path to be like this $1 billion company, right? It's like not that kind of thing. It's very much like a creator friendly, like 1,000 true fans type thing. So I think it just didn't really make sense, because I think what they wanted to do was make it bigger. And at a certain point, it's like, well, it's pretty big. It was decently big at one point, but it's kind of like, I don't think there's necessarily a path to 1 billion more people on the app, you know?
Right.
I think they just weren't sure what to do with it at the end of the day.
Okay. So the tagline is the player for heavy listeners. So that plays into what you're saying, like very much a power users thing. Known for having great design, Castro. In the iOS indie podcast scene, it's very much the yin to Overcast yang. I mean, people will say, you know, there's Overcast and there's Castro, and they kind of even went back and forth feature for a while. I'm a longtime Overcast user, so I used to listen to Marco Arman's podcast, so I know some of that history as well. And then here comes Dustin Bluck and Bluck Apps. You know, where are you coming from? Why are you the buyer of this thing? What's your history?
Why are you buying this thing?
Well, I mean, it's all about timing, right? So Castro is known to people like you because it was a big app in some of the code is like 2013, even older than that. I don't know how many podcast apps have come out on iOS in the past 10 years, but you probably don't know the names of many of them. Right? So where do I come in? Buying Castro is not like a great financial decision for me.
Already? You already know that.
Compared to alternatives. Okay. Well, it's like, so I worked for Instagram for a long time, and I've been self-employed the last few years. So one thing I could do is just go back to Instagram. That would pay a lot more money than Castro will pay me, right? So why did I buy it? I was working on a podcast app on the side, sort of just for my listing. I used it for a year before I released it. And then I do like mobile consulting, like for e-commerce companies, which like pays the bills, but isn't the most exciting thing in the world. Working on the podcast app was a lot more rewarding. I saw some posts about it that, you know, it was not doing so well. And then I think they actually posted it was going to be for sale. So yeah, it just sort of fell into my lap. I think I caught the guy at the right time. And I just did it. It makes a lot of sense for me to run an app. It makes a lot more sense than like, opening a restaurant or doing, whatever, going to a farm, whatever the alternative to like going back to big tech would be. It makes a lot more sense for me to run an app. So yeah, I'm able to do it. It's interesting to me. It's a space I really like. Yeah. So, it just kind of made sense.
Take us to the right time, right moment, exact moment. Did you email Andrew? Did you DM him on X/Twitter? I know he's prolific on X quite a bit. So how did this happen?
I've actually never spoken to Andrew.
Okay.
I emailed some like public facing emails on Castro, people that it would make sense to, and I had an initial like short conversation. I guess he acted as like a broker on the transaction, but someone who works for Andrew in some capacity. Very nice guy. It was I think people imagine this stuff is like a little more interesting than it is, but he was not like an expert on Castro. He didn't know that much about the app. It's like, I just have to sell it. So it was very business-like.
I just have to sell it.
Yeah.
More like real estate than like someone's business, insofar as the person selling it's like a real estate, what do you call it? Like a agent, a real estate agent. And they're just like, well, it's a house, here's the thing about it.
Yeah.
Here's what I know. I don't know anything else. You better do an audit.
Well, was there like did you buy the asset? Did you buy, the LLC? I think it was a Canadian company. Can you kind of reveal a bit more of the particulars, even if it's not that interesting?
Yeah. How does it work?
It's an asset sale. I bought their source code, their domain names.
All the pertinent things. Brand.
Yeah, AWS account.
IP. Yeah.
Yeah.
You assumed accounts.
Outstanding debts. No.
How about email? Did you assume the email assets as well, like
sure.
like archives?
Yeah, Google doesn't really. They don't want you to take over and like read everyone's email. It's not designed to work that way,
but you could if you wanted to. You could change passwords and stuff.
Yeah. So I took over the G Suite account. I took over AWS, the Linode stuff. Just I just started running the business.
Mm-hmm. Right. How do you value something like Castro? Like how does the negotiation work? Who names the first number? Because I think the rest of it's kind of boring in terms of, you transfer accounts and there's DNS and there's this and that. And it's like a checklist, right? And we all know how to do that. But for me, if I was going to buy a business like this, I wouldn't know if I should offer $100 or $100 million, right? Like, how do you get into a range? Was there a price tag on it when you emailed, or did you have to come up with a price? How'd that work?
So the first time we spoke, he gave me a higher price, but he said he had another buyer. And then we talked about a week later and he said he didn't have another buyer and he gave me a price that was about half of that. So,
okay.
I guess how you
have a hard bargain.
Yeah.
I'll wait a week and get a half off.
Yeah. You should have waited another week, see what it costs.
Yeah. Good point. No, they wanted to move on it. And, I made it clear that I was very serious and I would just do it. So I made it like as painless as possible for the other party, and they have another app. They've actually released it now, like called like Atomic Habits, I think.
Okay, I've heard of that as a book, but not as an app. Isn't there a book?
Yes, I think it's like the app for the book, or gotcha. I don't know if it's an app. It might be like a desktop app or something. I don't know what it is, but
sure.
So they wanted to get that out and not deal with Castro anymore. So I guess it's more just timing. In terms of how you would actually value, Castro makes money, so you could do like a 3 to 5 revenue or however like business people value companies.
Right.
But it's very much for me. It was like this is an app that people know, and that's worth something, right? And the price tag is not so high, so it kind of just seemed like that obviously makes sense, even if it never makes that much money, right?
How many digits in this price tag? Can you reveal like 6 figures, 7 figures, 5 figures?
It was 6, but it's more of a restaurant size than like big tech company sized.
Dang.
Okay.
It could have been a steal then, basically, especially if you do it right. I think
50% off.
Yeah,
that's right.
You got that was price perception, really. That was like Walmart,
right? Here's the price, and then
falling prices, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Cloudflare's Developer Week is over, but there is so much to cover from that week, and I'm here to give you a roundup, so here we go. Their fully distributed serverless database, D1, went GA. It now supports 10 gigabytes of data, and they added new exporting solutions and insight tools. Hyperdrive, which accelerates your Postgres and MySQL databases, also went GA. You know that monthly workers paid plan they offer? How much does that cost? $5? Yeah, $5. And how much does it cost to completely speed up your database operations using Hyperdrive? $0. Yeah, $0. With queues, you can now send and acknowledge messages from any HTTP client. They also added the ability to add delays. Yes, they added delays. Workers Analytics Engine, which provides analytics at scale, flipped the GA switch too. They launched a brand new AI playground that lets you explore all the hosted models on Workers AI, which, by the way, also went GA. That's right, production-grade global AI inference that you don't need to deploy, all available seamlessly in Workers or directly from a REST API call. They also announced a partnership with Hugging Face, so you can now quickly deploy an app using these models. And fine-tunes are here, y'all. That's right. They offer LoRa support. Upload your fine-tunes from Wrangler and apply them to their most popular LLMs. There are so many ways for you to build with AI using Cloudflare. It's awesome. And Cloudflare doesn't support Python? Wrong. They do now. Python Workers is here. From the same command using Wrangler, you can now launch a worker that can fast API, LangChain, NumPy, and more. R2 got event notifications. You can get notified now when an object is created, changed, or deleted, and handle that event in your worker. And who says you can't spell SDK without SDK? Craig did. And that means they have new SDKs for you to use: TypeScript, Go, and Python. And that is just a few announcements from Cloudflare's Developer Week. Check it all out for yourself at cloudflare.com/Developer Week. Once again, cloudflare.com/Developer Week. Well, when you said, okay, regardless of what the number is you paid for it, what is your ambition? Let's just start with the business. Let's set aside the cool looking application, the brand name, the awareness. Let's focus on just simply the business mechanics, the business model. What is your hopes and dreams in the next year? And then I would say long term.
Well, I think the brand is very related to that, but I'll tell you how I think about it. Like, I think the internet is moving. I'm sure you guys talk about this a lot towards like more like creator, peer-to-peer. All this stuff has a lot of momentum, and like, you know, paying people directly for things that you use. And a lot of people would rather do that than be on the big ad-supported platforms, right? And I think the way Castro works is like very much geared. Not only is it like a connection between creators in terms of podcasters and their audience, but it's very much like people who use it like see that as an extension of, you know, it's a very important place, this like intermediary between like podcasts that you really like and this sort of intimate thing in your ears and like people listening. And people also have a real affinity for the app, even though a lot of them are angry over the past year or so. Right. It's like, this is the app that I use to get all the people that I really love. It's very important to me. It's unique, even though we don't do a lot of things as well as a lot of other apps. We do some unique things really well, and I think that's really valuable to people. And like just that brand, and that people know that, and people really care about that, like does have a lot of value, I think. And I think it is, despite the fact that it's like been around a long time and, you know, seen lots of ups and downs, it's still really well positioned to do really well in a world where, you know, a lot of people are paying a couple bucks a month for the podcast that they love and they want to use it in the app that they love. And, you know, you're paying $2 a month for that, probably less than you pay for some of your shows. I don't know if I answered your question.
I mean, you didn't say exact numbers, but you did.
I think so. So you want to lean into subscriptions, right? So Castro has Castro Plus. That's a subscription, correct? That's like premium style?
Yes, sir.
Is that pro features, or what does that get you?
That gets you no ads in the app, and then speeding up playbacks, some like artwork. But yeah, it's premium features around your playing. I think skipping silence or make like heightening voices.
Do you paywall chapters? I feel like there's an app that paywalls chapters.
I don't think we paywall chapters, but okay. I could be wrong about that.
I would take that out of the paywall if I were you, or I'd suggest that you do. But I understand you got to put a wall somewhere, and you got to make some money somewhere. I think chapters is a little bit, it should be a regular feature. But
I think there's a couple of things we could take out of the paywall.
I think you might actually, because I'm on chapters in our thing and it says pre-select chapters as a heading.
Okay.
And it says subscribe to Castro Plus to pre-select which
There you
chapters to play and have Castro skip the others automatically.
Oh, you can skip chapters automatically.
Yeah, you do like a choose up front thing. Yeah, I've never
Okay.
seen another app do that.
Yeah, but when I click the X, the chapters all go away. So like it seems like it's hidden behind something.
Is that based on a regular expression that you write, or how do you actually pick which chapters? Not you, Dustin, but you, the power user. Like, do I say, I'm just thinking like you could skip all of our sponsorships with the right title, regular expression if you wanted to. Is that how it works? Because that's a cool feature.
Yeah, you could definitely skip the Euro ads the way yours work. You
You
can't like.
got to mix them up then, Jared.
We're gonna start putting hidden characters in there, cat and mouse with our listeners.
right.
Arguably, you should not put the ads in the chapters, right? That's just inviting people to skip them.
It is, but you know what? Our ads are so good that people don't skip them anymore.
It's true.
You laugh, but only for now.
Dang, Jared.
Until you hear them, then you're like, "Dang, this guy's got a real
Extreme
point."
confidence here. I love it.
I think if you don't want to hear our ads, we aren't going to fight you on that. We're going to make You're going to make your listening experience as best as we possibly can, and a chapter for a sponsorship just makes sense. So
Fair enough. Castro wants to do the same thing.
cool. I'm still stuck on the acquisition. Can we go back there for a moment? Because here's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm acquiring assets. How much knowledge of the assets do you have going into it? Specifically, do you get to see the source code before you make the purchase? Because, gosh, you could really buy a dumpster fire of code, right? Like that. If you're getting the assets and it's unmanageable, that's going to drop the price quite a bit. Did you get to see the source code?
Yeah, so we did like a pay half, check everything, and then sort of pay the other half.
Okay.
I could have, if it had been a total disaster, I could have backed out at that point.
Yeah.
So I did get to verify the source code. But prior to that, I didn't see the source code until I'd paid. But prior to that, I'd seen all the numbers, all the accounts.
Sure.
I'd sort of poured through everything. I don't know. I probably still would have done it if the source code was completely unmaintainable. I think you could just start from scratch.
Rewrite.
Yeah.
Really
I don't know.
ambitious.
Wow.
That would have been a whole different thing, but I would have thought about it at least.
Is it Objective-C? Is it Swift? It's going back a decade.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. There's still maybe 40% Objective-C or something, which is a lot more than I'd like.
Yeah. So you're like rewriting page by page, or what are you doing? Are you personally coding this up?
Yeah, so I've done more backend. I've definitely done some of the iOS. I also have another developer helping me out with that. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to rewrite a lot of stuff, but it's okay. Like, a lot of things need improved. As we improve it, we'll redo a little bit. Some of the views are still in storyboards, which I think would surprise a lot of iOS developers. It definitely surprised me. I didn't expect that. So a lot of that stuff needs redone.
Mm-hmm. How old is this announcement, this purchase? Is it 2024?
Was it January?
Late 2023?
So I announced this on January 31st, I think, a couple months.
And I imagine it's probably at least a couple months. So maybe October, November last year as a process to acquire.
No, not that long. I think it was around Christmas. So
Dang.
Less than a month.
So you inquired and acquired within 30 days.
I think about 30 days, yeah.
That's quick, man. Wow.
He's all business.
I like it. I mean, that's good stuff. I mean, sometimes lawyers can get in the way. They can go back and forth. They can delay things. Did you have a lawyer? Did you navigate this solo?
I had a lawyer work on the contract.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just, I was looking for something. I was looking for the right thing, and it kind of fell into my lap. And then it was just like, okay, we'll do it. And I think that's part of the reason they were happy to go with me is I was just like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, everybody likes speed, especially, do you have cash? Can you do it now? Yes. Okay, let's do it. I mean, that's the best world.
That is nice. Okay, so where do you go from here? I mean, you started with the servers. I'm trying to think of like what would a takeover look like. I would definitely get into the source code. I would make my announcements. You did that because you're bleeding users in the meantime. Like, people are angry at Castro because they love Castro, and Castro is falling by the wayside. And so it's not, I mean, like, literally podcasts aren't being downloaded. I mean, I'm seeing some of the Twitter threads from back at the turn of the year. It wasn't great. Now it's, I'm sure that was your priority number one, is like, we got to get it functional.
Yeah.
And that's mostly server-side stuff?
It's the app is really server-driven to an extent that really surprised me. It's like, if the server's not, like, you really can't do anything if the server's not functioning well. And it wasn't functioning hardly at all when I took over. So, and I don't have a huge background like server-side, especially like Ruby on Rails. It's like, I've never written any Ruby code before. So the first 2 weeks was like very stressful. So it's just like the app, I've worked in apps for a long time. Like, I know I can figure it out. but like the server, like if the server goes down, like the app doesn't function and like there's nobody to call, it's just me, you know? So that was a very stressful period. A lot of learning how things worked. I was just like, I had to understand it well.
Do you have any regret? Are you regretting this decision? Are you still excited? Be honest.
No, I have less regret now than I did like a month ago. Now we just turned on some ads. I've been talking to some podcasters. I've been doing some calls with like companies.
Yeah.
So it's like it's gotten a little more fun like the past couple of weeks. I've definitely had moments where it's like, ugh, I don't know if I can do this, but no, I think it was sort of an obvious decision, and I'm very happy about it. Yeah, I don't have any regret.
Would you like some unsolicited, I suppose, feedback?
Sure.
Adam's good at this. Here it comes.
Well, I just think about story, right? We folks, like even Jared and I, like the reason you're on this call is because you had a conversation with Jared. He took a liking to you. I'm a fan of Castro, prior user. And I think we all buy the why, not the what. And if I go to the Castro website right now, there is no why happening here. It's the same old Castro. There's no announcement of your story. There's no mention of really you. Even if you go back to the blog post that was what Jared just asked about, which was this bleeding user scenario, the Future of Castro podcast, December 2023, like you could have gone back and updated this blog post to say there's new ownership here. See this new post. We're so excited. That's why I asked you if you had regrets, because it seems like you're not telling your story. You need to tell your story.
Yeah, someone else emailed that to me. That I've been very corporate
Yes.
in the post. I don't know. I didn't really see it as about me. The way I thought about it was...
I think there is a story here, though, right? There's Bluck Apps. There's a reason why you got it. You're on this show sharing your story. There is a story.
Well, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
We found it interesting. I mean, I think, are you leaning into the indie side or are you going to lean into the corporate side? Because it seems like you're going small. Right? It's you and a dev.
Yeah, I hope to bring on at least one more dev, but yeah, it's definitely going to be small. I mean, we're not going to hire a big team or anything. No, I think that Castro only makes sense right now if it leans into the indie side, right?
Yeah. So then, therefore, it should be about Dustin and his ragtag group of devs who took over this thing. It was dying. They saved it. Here's why we care about it. You know, and now you also get to cross promote your Android app, which is great. I'm not saying the app is great. I haven't used it. I'm saying the fact that you have two apps is awesome because they both will feed each other.
The Android app is great, just so you know.
There you go. Yeah, well, I assume so. But haven't used Android, so couldn't vouch for it. And I think that, yeah, I mean, people like people, right? And they like software written by people. And if you're not going to be a corporate Borg and you're going to be small, indie, Dustin and his team, then you have to actually embody that. And I mean, this podcast is a good step in that direction, right? Like you're telling your story.
For sure.
I like Castro now more than I did when we first started this call, just because like now I know Dustin, I know what he's up to. I understand his plans, even though if the app doesn't quite get to where I want it to be right now, I know he's working on it. And, you know, I can send an email to support and they'll reply right away. Like that kind of stuff goes a mile on goodwill and on subscriptions and all the things. That's what Adam's getting at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I think you got the post that was not from you. Then you've got the post that says a fresh start for Castro, which is great. So I would say go back to the Future of Castro podcast, which is from the prior administration. Let's just use political terms. Prior administration, you know, and points that say like this is not true anymore. Where we have a brand new beginning here. Here's the first of many that will illustrate where we're trying to go. And then you have one that's called pricing updates. So I would just say lean into the love. Wrap your arms around the entire indie podcast community, creators and listeners.
Squeeze us.
And just show them some love.
I see you're doing a Reddit AMA. That's a good step.
I am, yes. Yes.
It was funny because I came across that by happenstance and I thought, he set up this Reddit AMA and he didn't answer any of the stinking questions. And then I realized it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet. It's
the
Friday.
questions are just queuing up. I'm like, who does an AMA and doesn't answer any of the questions? And I was like, oh, it's Friday. Okay. That was funny. So that's a good start, you know?
Yeah.
Like, show your face, talk to the people, be a human, and
Absolutely.
be indie, you know? Because unless you're going to try to go big and corporate, then you might as well be who you are. And I think people like that. I like indie podcast apps, always have, and probably always will. And I think a lot of people do, especially power users, right? People who want to have a connection to what they're doing. Not just, like you said, not just to the podcasters, but to the app that gets them to the podcasters.
So I guess if you're focusing to some degree or fully on the indie realm, let's just say, whether it's a listener, a creator, what are some of the ways that you think you can improve that relationship between a listener or a creator to the, I mean, let's face it, a podcast app, a client like yours is the distribution. Like Jared and I, our businesses, our livelihood can flourish further if you put the right features in place that attracts users to listen to podcasts more regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think chapters is a big deal. We pour so much effort into chapters, titling, we pour a lot of effort into even our ad production, not just crappy ads, but ads that actually tell a story and connect. So I'm full on about story and connection. What are some of the things y'all have planned in terms of a roadmap or just whatever it might be to like lean into the indie?
Well, I'm talking to podcasters, so if you guys have ideas, I'm definitely all ears. I'm open to it. I mean, the first thing for Castro to do is to come up with feature parity with, some basics. You should be able to search episodes. You should be able to sync across your devices. It's like the roadmap kind of writes itself because there's the app just needs to be better and more reliable. So those are the big things we've been focused on. But I mean, I've tried very hard in my other app, just not to get in the way of and to show as much as you can of the actual whatever you put in the feed, that's what matters. And I think the user should see as much of that as possible. And we should not get in the way of that. And I think what you're going to see with a lot of other apps is a lot of getting in the way. You're already seeing this with some of the AI stuff and things that are generated artwork and transcripts and things like that. And we definitely want to go the opposite direction. It's like if you put transcripts in your feed, I want to show that to the user. But if you don't, I'm not necessarily sure I want to do that. I mean, that's a tricky one because that is an accessibility thing. But it's I think we want to be the opposite. We want to be the yin of the current trending yang in a lot of ways. That's something we're definitely going to focus on. But things things Castro could do a lot better. Things season and episode and trailers and bonuses. These basic things that are in the feed. Castro cut show notes off at 500 characters, I think, which is really not enough. I mean, I want to do a lot better job of really showing the user what the owner of the feed has put into it,
So it's 2024 and we're living in an era of information overload. We have more knowledge than we ever have before. But what do you do with all that knowledge? Well, if you're like us, you're at Changelog, or myself and my family, me and my wife, you put that knowledge to work inside Notion. Notion is a place where any team or family can write, plan, organize, and rediscover the joy of play. It's a workspace designed not just for making progress, but for getting inspired. Notion is also AI powered. It's a workspace where the everyday everything takes care of itself. Meetings have summaries, docs find themselves, and every question kind of has an answer. Notion AI turns knowledge into action, from summarizing meeting notes and automatically generating, well, everything kind of. To get answers to any questions, you can do that in seconds with Notion. If you can think it, you can make it. And Notion is for everyone, whether you're a Fortune 500 company to an indie media company like we are here at Changelog, or a family like my family at home, just managing, planning, and doing. It's for you. And you can try Notion for free today at notion.com/changelog. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/changelog, and start turning ideas into action. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show. So do that. Again, notion.com/changelog.
How much do you know about the new podcast namespace and a lot of the podcasting 2.0 features that people are building? These are indie apps. I mean, Apple just adopted their first tag from podcasting namespace, which was podcast : transcript, I think. but Spotify supports none of it. Apple supports none of it. And then a lot of the indie people support a lot of these features. There's things like the social interact where it's trying to get cross-app comments. There's a lot of stuff that people are trying, and they have some support from certain indie apps, but not other ones. And I'm just curious, are you plugged into that with your Android app, or what are your thoughts on the new podcasting features via the feed?
Yeah, I've talked to James Criddle, and I follow that stuff pretty closely. I've been in their GitHub repos a little bit, but some of that makes sense for us and some of it doesn't. But yeah, I think that leaning more into that is definitely a route Castro would like to go. And it makes a lot of sense to me. Things like the transcript tag, I think it's like a no-brainer, and we should be supporting that yesterday.
Yeah, podcast call in person, I think, is another one that's great, where you can actually have person objects in your feed versus just a name. And so you can provide rich information about the people on the show, whether they're a host, whether they're a guest. And then your user can say, oh, this is an interesting person. They click on the guest, right? And it takes them to probably some sort of search customized, where now all of a sudden they're seeing all the shows this person has been on. I long wanted, and I think some podcasts do this, a way to subscribe to a person. Because there's a lot of people who don't have podcasts, but they're on a lot of podcasts, and I don't want to track around to know what podcasts they're on this week. But when they're on a show, I'd like to know about it. I may listen to it, And so being able to follow a person across different podcasts is kind of a cool thing. Does Castro do that?
Castro does not do that.
Okay. I just don't want to be telling you about a thing that you already do.
It's a great idea, though. Do you guys use those features in your feed?
We do them all.
Okay.
Yeah, our feed is very rich. If you want a feed to use as an example of like people adopting new technologies, we're not like 100% in on them. Like we use the podcast funding one, but we don't use like all the value for value stuff. And we use the social interact, but it's just a Mastodon URL. But our feed is like, we're just trying to take advantage of everything that's out there in order to make our feeds as best as we can, in order to make our podcasts look and work as best as they can everywhere.
Right.
And so, yeah, we support all that kind of stuff. It's easy for us because we have our own platform. Like we just author all of our own stuff. And so we've been just incrementally adopting all that stuff. And so, yeah, we have it.
So as a user, I would definitely like to see all that too. I guess the only thing I would say is like nobody has ever emailed me and asked me for that. Like I don't think those features are really out in the ether very much.
Yeah, people don't know about them. I mean, it takes the app developers to really get these things out there, because a lot of times people don't even know they want a feature until it's sitting there and like, oh, that's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't know I could subscribe to Gary Vaynerchuk, for instance. He probably has his own show, but or somebody who's like a thought leader that doesn't have a podcast. I can just subscribe to this person inside of Castro, and whenever they're on whatever show, I'll know about it. People don't know they want that until someone tells them they want that. And a lot of times it's just what their app offers. And so that's why it's tough. Like you have so many parties involved. You have the listener, you have the podcaster, you have the platform, you have the apps. And who is going to get the word out? Well, we all kind of have to get the word out about the things that we think are cool or interesting. And so being the podcast app, you have a lot of power and a lot of influence in that way.
Tons. Being
the measly podcasters, like we just try to get a hold of the app owners and say, hey, this is cool, you should try it. And most of them ignore us. So Pocket Cast has been very receptive. It's awesome now that we know you. Marco Arment at Overcast, he takes feedback and feature requests. He says no to lots of stuff. But then there's the big apps that we just have we have a public email address that we can use.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't really have any chance influencing them. But I think as an app owner now, you got a lot of cool power you can wield for the better.
You are literally a web browser for podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I tell people.
That's what I tell
And you have the chance to embrace or create standards. Right? Like you can push the ball forward. You can stagnate and just be something that lets people subscribe and do all the basic, feature parity scenarios, which I'm not knocking necessarily, but like this is an opportunity to innovate and maybe even like really gain critical mass if you can do that. There's lots of things like, for example, we as podcasters compete with the likes of TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. While we're not directly competing, we also put our shorts there, our clips there, or whatever. There could be an option where inside of your actual podcast client, Castro could feature shorts. We can have a separate URL of just clips, that kind of thing, where people can subscribe to it. And you can have different interface based upon length of the show. There's lots of stuff you could do for discoverability. Not just, oh, you listen to this, you like that, and do basics, but like a lot of what I like about YouTube and its algorithm for me as a user is that it helps me discover once I like get into, let's say, my new kick, Jared, you love these things, is the Mediterranean diet. I'm just loving all things Mediterranean. So easy to cook with the Mediterranean diet. And now I have my feed littered with like various things. I was into picanha for a bit there, which is a particular cut of the beef on a cow. Very popular in Brazilian restaurants. It's basically a sirloin roast tip. It's got a big old fat cap on it. But I love all the recipes around picanha. Well, YouTube didn't just say, well, here, can you user go and find all the people? No, it helped me find the interest because of me sharing with it, I suppose, with, my awareness and my activity. Hey, Adam is searching for picanha. He wants to cook some picanha, surface some stuff up.
You are one of the only people that continually praises the YouTube algorithm. I mean, I hate that thing.
I love it. I mean, I love it. And I love it in the fact that it doesn't, as a user, I don't have to go and find all the things. It helps surface things to me based upon my interests. And I kind of like that.
I do one search. I'm trying to fix a dishwasher. So I search for like Bosch dishwasher. Now it's like, oh, you're a dishwasher aficionado.
I love dishwashers.
Let me play you all these. Like, no, I don't care about dishwashers.
You can tell it no.
I do tell it no. And it keeps coming back. And then all of a sudden I'll get a recommendation. I'll be like, this is great. And then I'll remember, 18 months ago, I subscribed to this person, and this is the first video of theirs I've seen. I would love to see all their videos, but no, I don't want to hit the subscribe bell.
I agree with that too. Like it's weird that there's a lot of folks I'm like, wow, I haven't subscribed to this person yet, and I like watch it frequently. Yeah. It's a strange conundrum.
It's a weird deal.
The point I'm trying to make is not that it is the best. There are certain things that can be borrowed.
Don't turn Castro into YouTube.
It's not going to happen.
Yes, there are things you can do though, right? You can do it the cool way.
I totally agree. I totally agree. There's a lot can be done, and there's a lot that's not happening, and there are a lot of things that Spotify and Apple are never going to do, right? So that's our opportunity.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, and it just you can thrive through it. Obviously, as Castro gets better, more subscribers, then you get this cool new feature. It can go premium, etc. And so it's not just us that benefits, but everybody who does. Do you have a roadmap? Not feature roadmap, but do you have like a path, on some whiteboard somewhere of like to zero or like to profitability, like break even? Do you like know what that looks like in years and months, or what are you thinking? Like, is this
we have a roadmap. We have a product roadmap. Financial projections, I mean, not so much. I have a rough idea. When we turned on ads today, so that'll help. That's basically going to be another developer, right? So that helps.
So that helps. So that's one thing. So you got ads, and then you got Plus. Are those your two revenue streams? Are there other ways that it makes money?
No, that's it. Open to other ideas though. Selling t-shirts.
We used to sell merch, but it's not gonna put food on the table unless you get up to MKBHD size. Okay, so are you continuing to consult? Like in the meantime, how do you make a living?
Yeah, I work 2 days a week now. It's been a lot. I'm probably gonna stop doing that. But yeah, I'm going to take a little time, get Castro into shape, and then kind of figure out what that looks like. There's a lot of stuff that I do now that I'm not necessarily the person, I don't have to answer every email long term. So taking a lot of that off my plate at some point would be good. But right now I want to see what the people are saying,
What about the Android side? Are there plans to unify the brand and just have Castro for Android and Castro for iOS? Or do you like to have the other app? Is it successful? Does it have its own thing going? How does that work?
Yeah, the Android app is called Aurelian. A lot of people don't seem to like that name, but I like it. So
what's that mean, or where'd it come from?
It's like a Roman emperor.
Oh, Aurelius.
I think one of Mark Zuckerberg's kids is named Aurelius.
Okay.
So
it's an homage to Zuck.
I didn't know that actually when I named it.
You bought Instagram. I love you.
You put a lot of food on your table.
Yes, yeah, that's right. No, so I think we will just call it Castro. Personally, I think my name is better than Castro, but Castro has the brand. So, but I can't do that right now because Castro is so specifically the inbox and the queue. And Castro is really server driven, and really it's like very client driven. They have in some ways like they have similar ideas, but they work technically opposite ways. And I wouldn't want to call it Castro if we don't have that core like inbox queue, like that flow is like what people think of as Castro. So I think that is probably what we'll do, but it's just not as important right now as making sure Castro is good.
Well, to be continued. I mean, I love it. I think this is exciting. It's cool that it didn't die. I mean, when indie apps die, it's a sad day. Somebody, probably many people out there, love Castro to death, and they were probably just worried that their favorite thing was going away. And now it doesn't have to go away, assuming that you succeed at all of your plans. So we're rooting for you. Adam, do you have any other thoughts or questions for Dustin?
Nothing that's coming to mind right off the top.
When's the open source version coming out?
I mean, I'm not like that opposed to doing that. I just don't know what that would benefit me. I think Pocket Cast is open source, and it's like, who's looking at that source code? I don't know.
Goodwill is probably what they're getting out of that. I do know that some of the people who are implementing things like Podcast Index, they go look at the Pocket Cast's source code from time to time in order to implement things or know how things work, just to get an idea of like, okay, here's how at least how one client is treating this particular thing. So it's all the developers, it's the people that are pushing things, not so much the users or the podcast creators. Maybe some users, it depends. I mean, a podcast app can be a pretty complicated beast, especially one that's stratified across client and server. And so it's like, if I could add my own pet feature to Castro, maybe I would participate. But if that's prohibitively complicated, it's like, it's not going to happen, Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if it would benefit you much, but I think it might benefit the world a little more than it is closed source. And I don't think it's going to be a drawback on you whatsoever, but that's just my 2 cents.
No concrete plans at this time. I mean, it makes a lot more sense to me to open source some of, maybe podcast parsing or some libraries or,
Right.
There are a lot of things that we do that it would be more reusable.
Where exactly is the money at? Like literally, is it in your pocket?
Are you about to rob him?
Where's the money at? Like when you look at this business, like there's some businesses say, I would never do B2C. You're kind of like in a B2C world in a way, right? You're a business to a consumer. And then you have some business to business opportunity, which could be the promotion, the ads, which is kind of like back to the consumer in a way, because most podcasters tend to be indie. So it's kind of like you're really just getting money from the people who produce, which probably make okay money. And then I got to imagine there's an opportunity to maybe become an ad marketplace to some degree to attract, the larger brands, the ones that are like Casper and Factor and the Squarespace, the ones that are really, really well known to do that, to connect them with the right kind of audiences and that kind of thing. Where is the money at for this? If it's beyond just simply a client, the long-term ambition of the money, where's the money at when it comes to this business?
Well, peak Castro, I think, from the records was about half ads and half subscribers. But, I think the money right now is with the users who really care about Castro. It's like there are some people who have been using Castro for 6 years, even through periods where it didn't function at all. And it's like, for now, our focus is on making sure that they have a good experience and they keep paying for it so we can keep making it. I mean, we have an ads product and it's going to make money, but for it to make very much money, we would have to have a lot more users, right? Mm-hmm. And to have a lot more users, we're just going to have a very good app. So I don't know.
Yeah, those got to happen in tandem. Like you got to keep improving the app and you got to keep improving the ad experience. And those are going to grow together. Mm-hmm. And they may grow incrementally as one leapfrogs the other, vice versa. They're going to have to, that's an iterative process. You're going to have to iterate to greatness on that front.
Yeah. So when we're 5 times the size, maybe that question looks a little bit different, but for now it's very focused, making the core users as happy as possible, and growing.
Did you describe in detail your ads platform, like what your hypothesis is, at least in the initial, while you are in the iterative state? Is it simply like an Overcast, not so much copy paste, but is it a version of what Overcast does, which is primarily, hey, if you want to promote the changelog to the technology audience, pay us $350 for a couple of days or whatever, and we'll guarantee you X kind of thing. That's I think for the most part what Overcast ad product is. How does yours compare?
Yeah, so you guys are on our Discover page right now as an ad. I saw the Practical AI show is doing a little better than the changelog, so I guess AI is higher right now.
That's actually pretty typical right now.
Yeah,
those guys are showing us up.
Yeah, AI.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, you have banner ads and you have sort of an ad on the now playing screen, but Castro's really tilted towards premium users. I think it's 25% premium, and they can hide those. Whereas the Discover ads, they can hide those too, but they're not hidden by default. But yeah, it's you pay for a week, you get on those screens. It's pretty basic. Castro's explore section is just not very smart right now. It's like very naive. So there's a ton that we can do, sort of very low hanging fruit, just to make that smarter and better.
Interesting.
25% premium is high.
Yes.
So I do think that that's where your money is going to be. If that's the kind of user that you draw in.
Yeah, it's very it's a diehard driven. I have people who email me every couple of days,
saying, "Hey, Dustin, how you doing?
Really like the app. Here are all of my issues with it."
Right.
Well, that's good.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. I was really surprised when I went through. I got access to the support account. I could read all the emails, and like when the app was like not functioning in November, like so many people emailed, and so much of it was like just saying how much they love the app. And they were sad. So I was really surprised, just how strongly people felt.
So you're obviously talking to two podcasters here and also two podcast listeners, because we are not, we're two sides of a coin, basically. But we're also talking into microphones and people are listening to this. Those are the listeners, if you didn't know, Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's give you a chance to, if you haven't already sold our listenership on the opportunity to become their potential podcast client of choice, what would you, why should they even care? Give me the sizzle, not just the steak. I
mean, there's a certain type of person who's really attracted to Mac productivity apps, who really the brain works a certain way. They want to get through things. And this really appeals, Castro really appeals to a certain type of person. The biggest shows on Castro are very Apple or tech driven. The changelog is pretty big. But Daring Fireball, if you read Daring Fireball, you probably will like Castro. I doubt that's one of the top shows on Apple Podcasts. I'm sure it's up there, but it's top 10 for Castro. But if you're in that demographic and you haven't tried it, it's who you are, the techie, tinker. It's very, very dad driven, I think. But if you're that type of person, you should probably try it. It's it has a very specific appeal.
You should try it. Castro.fm. Like I said before, I was a user. I was like, wow, Andrew bought this thing. Maybe there's some reason I should check it out. Overcast at the time was not giving me the kind of love I wanted. And so I felt free to install something else. Now, I did not uninstall Overcast. I just simply moved it off my home screen. Bye. But then Castro went away and Overcast is back. And I think the thing I love most about Overcast is how unhidden the chapters are. Like I said before, Jared and I, Changelog Proper, all of our shows, we put a lot of attention to detail into our chapters. I think, they're the way of the future, honestly, to help a listener find their way through a show. They're not just there as bolt-ons. They, to us, are first-class citizens in our workflows. And we put a lot of work into naming our podcasts. So I would say the more you can feature those kind of things, we better. But, I'm a big fan of Castro. Again, I have a higher outlook given our conversation here. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I just would encourage you to just dig into what your story truly is as you do shows like this, or you do your AMAs on Reddit or other podcasts, and just dig into your story and do whatever you can to be a little vulnerable with the community and invite them into your world and help them be a part of that world and help them enjoy it and create it with you. Because I think that's what the dividends are in the indie market.
I appreciate it.
All right. I got nothing else to say. Thanks for coming on the show, Dustin. We appreciate your time and sharing with us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I'm pretty nervous. You guys have a very big show. It's up there on Castro.
Nothing to be nervous about, man. Everyone's gonna.
Nothing to be nervous about. Yeah, glad to have you here. I think really it's just about being present with the community, and I think this is one of those many steps you can take. And we'll have you back on the show 6 months from now, a year from now. Right. There you go. Beautiful. When things are different and the nerves are going, you're like, yes, I conquered this thing. I've climbed the mountain, and here's all the people with me. Because that's what you're gonna do.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hope so.
All right. Thanks, Dustin.
Thanks, guys.
Well, I'm using Castro once again, but I have to say that they have to have default good support for chapters before I can officially make the switch away from Overcast. I'm just being honest. To me, chapter support is paramount for a good podcast listening experience. That's exactly why we put so much love and attention into our chapters. But I do think Castro deserves your attention once again. And Dustin is certainly putting in the effort to get Revert back to indie. So head over to Castro.fm and give it one more look if you haven't done so already. For our Plus Plus subscribers, there is a nice little bonus conversation to enjoy, so stick around. Once again, big thanks to our sponsors for this episode, Sentry, Cloudflare, Notion, Fly. We love all them. Sentry has a coupon code, CHANGELAW, to get you $100 off the team plan. Cloudflare is awesome. We love them. Love Notion. And of course, Fly.io is the home of changelog.com. So check them out, fly.io. Of course, BMC, those banging beats. So awesome. Love Breakmaster Cylinder. That's it. This show's done. We'll see you on Friday.